Okay, so literally just back over from the spray bay, and as you might see down in here, we got a couple of little problems we want to take care of. First of all, you might be able to see this cockpit seal is nothing short of awful. It doesn't look too bad because it's clear part, you can't really see. So we need to take care of that, okay? Generally though, we've looked around at some of the other areas. We put a little bit just down in here. That looks like quite nice. But really, everything's fine apart from that. Now what we're going to do purely for speed here is use super glue. Now normally, I know what you're thinking, don't use super glue near clear parts and all the rest of it. But on something like this, because it's so far away and it's already been glued and sealed, I don't think we're going to have a problem, okay? So all we're going to do is be a little bit messy with this. We're just going to come along, we're going to put a little bit of a blob, if we can get it to come out. We can just start him off. There we go. Okay. So we're just going to put a little drop on the top like this, and what we're going to do is drag it. So we're just going to drag this down there. Now we don't want to go too far because obviously we don't want to take it down the panel line. Okay, and then we're just going to drag it along here. And we'll let the capillary action do all the work for us. Now this will take about 10 minutes or so to dry. But the great thing about using super glue as a filler like this, one, it's really clean. Secondly, you'll have no seams whatsoever. Okay. And third, it's quick. Okay. So I'm just going to put a little bit on here as well because there's a tiny little seam there I'm not very happy with. A little bit too much. Okay. But you only really want to do this around clear parts when you've already taken care of the seam lines. Okay. So if it looks like there's a little sink mark in there or something else like that, but you can put a little bit like this onto the actual area. Okay. So now we've just got to do on this side. So again, I'm going to put it onto the stick first, then we're going to come along. Just like that. Now you could, if you wanted to, use a tiny bit of kicker just to speed this up. Bubbles aren't good, okay, so but from my point of view I prefer to let it dry naturally, okay, and what happens is it dries really clear. If you use kicker, it gets quite a little bit of a frosty look to it, but what we can do, it'll only take around about 10 minutes to really go off, and then we can get in there, we can physically sand it, take out any little areas, things like that. But if you get tiny little imperfections, a tiny little bit of super glue like this works absolute wonders, okay? So that's pretty good. Now what we've done is we've sprayed up these top parts, but to be honest, they keep falling off on me and they're getting in the way and they're causing problems. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off and we're going to replace it with a little bit of tape just to take care of all of this. So there we go, so it's nice and clear. So what we're going to do, we're going to tape up all this with a little bit of masking tape. So again, we don't have to worry too much about certain areas because we can come back and hand paint something afterwards. But what we're trying to do is obviously protect what we've got down in here. You could, in theory, if you have got a little bit of foam like this, and you could literally just do something as easy as just jabbing it in there, okay, and then that'll take care of it. So if you wanted to, you could literally come in here, the front, but the thing is, you might get a little bit down the cockpit area, which is what would worry me. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take a little bit of tape like this, and then I'm just going to roughly cut it to the right size. Okay, so just pop it down there so we know this is going to come up about that type of angle and it's going to come up about that. So we only want a rough fit. Which is a good job because that's way too small. Okay. Just like that. Then you can come in with a bit of sponge if you wanted to and just pop it down in there just to protect. And then what we're going to do is we want to protect this little guy down on the side here, so we're just going to take all this up. Again, you can pop in if you wanted to with a little bit of hand painting. Alright, what we do, we're just going to run this across. And depending on your type of weathering style and all things like that, then you could pop in and completely redo the inner type areas like this. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Just one little bit just around in here. Also, the thing is, clear parts can be quite fragile, let's face it. We're all guilty of cracking them. By putting this, because this one, it sits quite high, it's always that weight is going to be on the glass work and everything else like that. This bit down the back here, I'm not worried about. We're going to repaint all that by hand. And also now we've protected off everything on the inside there, so we should get no oversprays and problems and everything else. So that super glue is drying very, very nicely. We're going to give it a couple more minutes. We'll get that sanded down, smoothed out, make sure it's right, come back in, we'll get the primer on, we can check all those seams, make sure they're all good, and if they are, then we can actually get that paint on. Okay, so as you can see, we have taken care of obviously all the damage around this area, if you like. Now, usual thing, when you're working your way through, sand it back, use quite a coarse grit. So down in here we've got the medium, sort of skinny, the blue core one, so we've used the actual coarse side, then we've gone in with the fine side, and then we've just gone in with a buffer just to polish it all up, because obviously what you want to do is get rid of any damage you might cause as well. So this bit down the side here, we've gone too far, we've sanded that as well just to blend that all around. Now, because we've done sanding as well, what you want to do is obviously get rid of this dust, because otherwise it's going to get in your paintwork, so forth and so on, and you're going to cause troubles as you move down the line. Anyway, what we've got to do now is put the grey back on there to protect that, and so obviously from the see-through colour, then we can actually get the primer on top. But it's well worth spending that little bit of time just to make sure you're happy that you're going to have nothing that's going to show through, because now we can correct it. It's the whole point of doing all this type of work. You can correct those little tiny faults. So look around your model, just be quite critical about it, have a look, see what's down there. If you can see that there's something that's going to give you a problem a little bit down the line, take care of it there and then, because that way, when time you get the primer on, you get the paint on, and then top coats. Otherwise, that thing is just going to get worse with every stage you make your way through. Right, over to the spray bay. Let's get some primer on it. Okay, so over to our very dirty spray bay. I'll have a clean up before we get going with the main paint. So down on here, we have XF19. Now, we haven't really, we've got XF20 because I'm actually out of, I haven't got enough to complete all of this. So I'm going to do, next best thing, XF20. It's only a primer. So from our point of view, as long as it's a lightest colour right the way over, it'll just make painting a lot easier. So this has had, to be honest, a damn good mix up with the old Badger mixer. Okay, we're going to do a straightforward 50-50 mix into some. This is actually, what is this? This is this stuff, which is the Vallejo airbrush thinner, which is just as good as X28. Alright, so that's down in here. We give this a good old mixy mix right the way through. Okay, so actually that's maybe a little bit thick, I don't know, we'll see how that goes for the minute. Might want to thin that a little bit more, but we'll see how we go with this one to start with. So, straightforward into the colour cut. To be honest, we want it to be a little bit thicker because we've done some sanding work on this, as we just saw, so we're going to need to cover some of that up. But hopefully you can see down there in the front, that's looking all very nice. So quite a high air pressure, because this is just a primer, so actually we want this to be covering. Okay, so we want to cover everything in a nice coat, okay? And there we go, you see we can't see those marks in there anymore. Alrighty, so as I say, a nice wettish coat, so it's got time to self-level out and everything else like that. So what I'm going to do, hit the extractor, and we're just going to put this everywhere. Just turning down the air pressure a little bit. first bit in there. As I say, we're just going to work our way round quite methodically on this. And again, we're just checking, making sure we're happy. We've got no damaged parts, no heavy duty scratching or anything else like that, okay? What we're going to do. Checking the engine's quite important, because obviously we've done some work on those. Okay. So that's looking the part. Okay, so happy with that for the moment. Let me sit up there. So what we'll do is we'll redo that at the front. Okay. A little bit of problem holding this one. Where to do it? It's quite a large lump, so we can probably get away with it being face down like that. Okay. So what we'll do is we'll just blow that in again. Just around the nose. Okay, so what we'll do, let that dry, and then we're going to come back and we'll just have a good look around it. We'll check it's all okay, everything else like that. If it's all good and we're happy, then what we'll actually do, take it back to the bay, get the other parts out here, the flaps, the gear doors, everything else like that, we get all of those painted, and then we can start on the light fuselage colour. We can start putting that down, we can have a look at doing the wings and all those areas. The last area we'll do on this will be the black, okay? But for the moment, we just need to get this primer down and check. Really happy how this rear end's turned up. So we got the little bit of riveting I did down there because I couldn't help myself. That's come out really nicely. That seam line is done, and then down here we haven't got any centre seam. So actually that's worked really well. Happy with all of that. Okay, so primer on, and I'll be honest with you, I redid that front again. This is that thing, you just go for it until you're happy. Once you're happy, everything sort of falls a little bit more into place, okay? And you feel a little bit more confident in the rest of the build. The other thing as well, we've just popped along here with a little bit of dark aluminium, the Vallejo metal colour, just to do this leading edge. Now the reason for doing that is obviously we've got slats that are going to go on there, and we want them to be metal afterwards. It'd be quicker to do that than it is to go round and sort of prime them up and everything like that. So these are the particular ones in question, okay? So these are literally just going to be as simple as fitting these in the closed position right the way over it like this. And what we're going to do is, once this is totally dry, we're going to tack them down and put them into place, and we'll spray them in situ. Then that way, when we do fit them in, they'll just pull forward like this, and we'll have an aluminium looking coat just coming through the back, as it appears they are in all of the actual photos that I've got. Now, you know me, I like to use a different paint every time we do a different model. So this time we're coming along with AK Interactive's paint. Now, we've used it once before, and to be honest, I wasn't so much of a fan of it. It didn't cover particularly well. It was quite heavy. It needed thinning a little bit from, obviously it's called the Air series, so you tend to think it's very much like the Vallejo stuff. It's not. This stuff does need a little bit of thinner to make it go. Also, the pigment count is extremely heavy in these, to be honest. You probably see these two bottles of blue. No, they're not. They're actually, one's a dark grey, and the other one is the underside sort of bluey grey colour. But as you can see, that's how heavy the pigment separation is on these, okay? So make sure you give them a good old shake. So usual thing with this, we've got a couple of M5 nuts in there. I've got two of them, smashing the hell out of it all in there to break it all up. And to be honest, I've been shaking this quite vigorously for the last 10 minutes, okay, to really get it to go, because it's a new bottle, and it's going to separate quite heavily in there. So what we're going to do, we're just letting this dry off. Hopefully it's dry enough now. Okay, so what we're going to do is just tack these into place with a little bit of blue tack, just to hold them in there. They don't have to be perfect. We're not looking for perfect. We're looking for it just to sort of act as a mask. It saves us having to physically mask it ourselves. Okay, and we can paint them at the same time. Okay, so from that point of view, we can just take a little bit of tack like this. We're not going to need lots of it. So we're just going to roll it flat. Okay. Or as flat as you can go, just over these. And again, you don't want it sticking up high and proud and everything else. That's why I was saying about roll it as flat as you possibly can. And then this guy, because we can paint the underside as a separate, but the top we all need it to blend in. That way we can just sit this in here like this, and it acts like a mini mask right the way over. The entire wing is going to be the grey colour anyway, sorry, the green colour anyway, so really it's not so much of a problem. It's all going to be RLM 82. Okay, let's just do these last two over here. Okay, and we just get those other ones sorted out, put in. And then we're just going to pop this guy just here. Alright, and then this sticks on the top. Again, it's cheating, it's just a quick, easy way of masking. I just need to grab the other two, which, to be honest, kept all nice and safe in our little closed pot. In here somewhere. There's one. There's two. Alright, now this one's got a little tab mark at the front, so I'm not going to sand it in the bay, I'll just do it out of shock. Obviously we don't want to get any dust and debris in there. Okay, that's fine now, and that one's good as well. Okay, a couple more little, only going to need one in each. Okay, so just going to roll those flat. One there. One there. Okay, make sure we got left and rights correct. Okay, now the thing is, I know a lot of people will be going, well, yeah, but that's not proper mask and it's going to get bleed through. To be honest, that's what we want. We want it to slightly bleed through onto these. It gives a more realistic look and everything else like that, okay, as we make our way through the actual build. So, what we need is a little colour cup with my colour cups. Okay, so same way, if you've been watching our little series we've been doing about mixing paints and various things like that, then this is exactly the same way. So what we're going to do is decant this in. Now this green is literally for the tops of the wings, and it is for the tails, okay, for the tailplane. So all of these are going to be green, these are all going to be green, okay. That's the only area. So from that point of view, we're not going to need too much, and it's going to be quite straightforward. But what we're going to do is modulate the colour a little bit. So thinner's going in here, okay. Give this a mix, good mix. Give it a proper good mix up in here, okay. And then we're just looking for it to have no real bits in it, and to be honest, we've got bits in this which I'm not too happy about. So it's probably just where the pigment is so heavy. Okay, so you might notice on the side you get like little bits hanging around it and stuff like that. That's not bubbles, that's actually physically bits. So what you do, easiest way for that one, let that one stand just for a moment. We're going to grab some of that thinners. We're just going to put it through our airbrush, make sure it's working well. That's smooth, no hissing, no crackling noises, no nothing. Happy with how that is. Okay. Now this is separating very slowly to the bottom, so what we're going to do is very slowly tip it into our colour cup. Okay, so we've got it in there like that. We'll check our flow. Quite nice, alright. So we're making sure that these are in the right place. So it's the entire tops of the wings. It's as simple as that. There's nothing too fussy on this. It's not on the fuselage, it's tops of the wings. This way we can mask them all up afterwards, alright? So again, we're just going to come in nice and light to start with. Now obviously these plastic areas that have got no primer, I'm going to take a little bit more. Okay, and we're just going to work it over those, and we're just going to work it over the wing, just nice and lightly, smooth. Okay, just the tops. It's not going to be too much on the tops because, to be honest, we've got other things going down in there. So we're just going to do one little area like that. Happy? And then we'll do the tail. And we're just going to give it a light coat. Okay, and what we're going to do is just build it up quite slowly, but very deliberately. Okay. Again. On the primed areas, you can see you can go in there a lot heavier than we have elsewhere. Okay, so we're done just like that, so it's coming on quite nicely, but as you see it all looks a little bit damp, so we just air just to dry this down. Okay, and we're just trying to build it up quite slowly. This is the thing with this paint, don't go in there chucking it down really heavy because actually it doesn't like it. Okay, so second coat over on here. Nice and smooth. And as you can see, this area where we've got primer on, you see how well it's covering. It's going straight away, but the actual forward areas where we haven't primed up these wings, taking a little bit more. Okay, so we're just going to do these. And it's going to be a nice, slow process, just gently building them up. But it's not a problem, that way we're going to have nice, smooth paint. Okay. Okay, so that's the first one. So we're getting a little bit cloudy in here, so what we do, hit the extractor. And you might notice how we've got blue on the top here. This is where this is separated, so always make sure it gets a bit of a mix. Okay, back down in here again. And then what we're going to do is just going to lightly continue to build these coats up. Okay, so we're going to let that dry off just for a minute, and then we're going to come back and give it subsequent coats as we make our way through.